Hello everyone, I am Tassie. I hope all of you had a wonderful Halloween yesterday. So today we are going to be going over a bunch of teams for the Tall, Dark, and Gruesome Gems of War event week. We're also going to be covering things like Shahbanu Vespera that's in Soulforge, Weaver that's in Soulforge, Ocea's Tome, which is not only insanely good for the current world events, but also for pretty much every elemental team in existence. So a lot of pretty good things to end up messing around with this week, that is for sure, as far as obtaining through various means. Well, let's start and go all the way from the top with the world event, which is a elemental restriction. As far as our very first team here, pretty standard, just Forest Troll, Gop Truffle, just a non-mythic, easy to just wipe the entire area kind of team. You just keep going and spamming Truffle, get the Forest Troll for the doubling of the green. They have auto extra turn and feedback into themselves, and Mirage Queen is to give 50% mana start, and will probably be on almost every single one of your teams for the award event this week, as it is a really good way to just get all the mana flowing. With that being said, Mirage Queen is used again in more of a standard Rowan build here for the very next team. You're not forced to, of course, use Elemental Hero class. You can actually use any. However, you're probably just going to be going with Elementals due to it gaining 50% mana start when you're using your Mirage Queen. In this particular situation, we're just doing it with Rowan. We can't use a standard mana accumulator, so we're going to have to go down the Firebomb route. And I've been doing this for a lot of the lower range. While it's also the cheap team that uses a lot of low rarity stuff, it is also really good just for the low range. So if you're only buying like 0, tier 1, tier 2, stuff like that, this can go most of the way, especially if you end up replacing out for a Skia Shield. You can end up going even further instead of going with a Black Manacle if you so choose. We also have additional benefit of having both skull damage and spell damage for this event. However, you're primarily going to be using spell damage due to how many good damage sources are underneath elementals for doing such a thing. This Tuesday, which is now today, we of course have ourselves the faction event for the... Oh gosh, I actually forget the thing's name. Luckily it says under Pure Faction, the Umbral Nexus. I always want to call it something else. But Umbral Nexus is a yellow-purple... restriction as far as what you're able to end up using. So for this very first team, we're just going with a pretty standard Gord's Avatar team. Generally, if you don't have access to Rowan, it's basically the yellow or brown version of Rowan, in this case the yellow version. Next up, we have ourselves a pretty standard Hiking Iron Gut Zugoth build. It works really well for the higher range, among one of the better teams that you can end up using for it. So if you end up having it, or one or the other, you can end up building around it and just clearing out very quickly due to having access to purple, which gives some really good mana accumulation options. As far as the Pure Faction, I personally did this with 2 of the Legend and 2 of the Void Wisp. However, one issue I ended up finding is Void Wisp has Stealthy, and having a team with partial Stealthy in Faction is actually bad. The main reason for this is if your team is partially stealthied, the enemy will be forced to target the things that are not stealthied. So the problem that ends up happening with this is, of course, in factions, you don't want to die at all. You don't want to lose a single troop. So if you end up having like 2 Void Wisps, 3 Void Wisps, the issue is whatever your 9 Void Wisp is will end up getting targeted due to it not having Stealthy. One of the easiest solutions to this is just go for Void Wisp. It ends up stealing some life, drains some mana, so not only do you get a bunch of life to make sure you don't die, you get to deny their mana so they can't do as much, and you get to steal a very small amount of magic. You can end up diversifying a little bit, however, this runs the problem of your team potentially dying or being more targeted, whereas if you're running with 4 stealthies, they're going to have to go and distribute their damage equally among every single thing on your team. One other alternative to this is, of course, just don't have Void Wisp traded. However, a lot of people, due to it being low rarity, probably already have it traded for kingdom upgrading purposes. However, of course, the other workaround is run with like double him, double legend, something similar, and just not have the stealthy trait. But for many people, of course, if you have the stealthy trait, you cannot end up undoing that stealthy trait. Plus, having it fully traded does give you an additional benefit. Ends up creating 1 purple gem when its turn begins, and this does stack, so you're creating 4 purple gems at the start of every single turn, and this does immediately give you mana. So a lot of times you're just going to get a free Void Wisp every single turn with a +2 purple banner, and that's pretty much the whole gimmick. Just keeps spamming Void Wisp every single turn, and just out-fatigue the enemy by constantly stealing out their life, and ideally primarily doing it off your first slot to make sure it doesn't die to skull damage. So that's pretty much the Pure Faction. Just keep spamming that onto whatever the biggest target is and just true damage them down. Next, we have ourselves the Elementalist class for Thursday. Basically, what we're doing here is a very similar strategy, oddly enough, to the faction, where we're essentially creating a purple every single turn, and we're feeding that purple into, this time, a weapon instead of just a Void Wisp feeding into themselves. In this case, Black Manacle. Just a nice, cheap, easy to obtain weapon from level up. You just keep spamming Black Manacle and you're good to go. You can run it with different hero classes if you so choose. This one happens to just have it as Elemental, so you can use it as any 50% Mana Star. You can use it as Archmages. You can run it as anything you wish. As far as the task coverage for the week, if you haven't already done all the tasks, we have ourselves here being able to cover the 3 general things that you normally want to cover. The weapon, in this case, Polearm, the banner, which is the Elemental banner, the +2 brown, +1 purple one there. Actually, is that purple? I always confuse that for purple. It's actually blue. It looks so purple, but it's the Nexus banner, of course, the one associated to the faction, and of course the hero class of the faction, which is Elementalist. So there's definitely not a lack of good Elementalist teams to be using. However, it's just nice to just get the task done really quick without having to change the team constantly for other things. Next, these next 4 I'm actually going to show. So, of course, we still have the conclusion of the Carmina event. If you haven't been progressing on that, I do advise continuing to do so, or doing so if you haven't already. Of course, we have the Lost Stars of Carmina. This has been going on all last week. It's going on all this week. And there's a bunch of unique rewards that you can end up getting. Witch's Armor, which we don't know if it'll be returning. It's fully cosmetic and, you know, it's just for the visual purposes. However, this will likely be money locked into the future, so if you want to get it for free, definitely make sure to do so now. And aside from that, we have Carmina and Carmina's kitty. We just covered a video going over a bunch of teams on Carmina. That should be up probably slightly before this one goes out. But basically, she's a decent skull spammer that you can plop into various teams. If you happen to not end up getting her before the end of this event, you'll be able to do so 4 to 6 weeks after this event, which will mean the first mythic that you'll be able to synergize it with is the first mythic of next year in January, the first Friday of January. So you'll be able to get it then in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests if you choose to do it that way. Otherwise, you can simply get it from the event, buy it once, use a blue orb on it, and you're good to go. You do not need to buy it the other 2 times. Simply once with a blue orb is perfectly fine. And of course, Carmina's kitty, this will be available as soon as the event ends in about 5 days, and it'll be just in the standard drop table. It is a non-cosmetic pet, which is relevant because any pet that gives any amount of bonus is always in the drop table. And it'll be immediately in the drop table as soon as this event ends, so theoretically the first pet gnome you find after the event on like next Monday could theoretically be this kitty. It is very unlikely for that to occur due to how many pets are in the drop table. However, it is not impossible, so if you happen to have not picked it up or not maxed it because you didn't pick up all the copies, because you get 1 automatically for the login and then the other 30 comes from buying this 5 times. But if you happen to not max it, you'll still be able to get it and max it into the future. And of course, there's Power Orb for the achievement. But anyways, as far as the battle, you generally take it based on which one has the weakest composition. In this case, I'll probably want to go down this one. Even though it's a higher level, its composition is worse. So we're going to be running with this team. So it's a Thrall, Zugoth, Alderfather, and Leprechaun. Basic premise of this is just to have a bunch of skull spam and just have a decent mana accumulation cycle and go from there. So we're mostly looking to get Zugoth as immediately as we possibly can. Unfortunately, a little bit short as we would have wanted to ideally casted that right there. But it's fine. If we have alignment here, we do have Alderfather. It does red to purple as well as yellow to skulls. So we can end up putting that in if we need. We'll kill out their skull spammer just to play it a little bit safe. And I don't... Oh, no, we do have it right over there. So we have the yellow to skull right over there, so we'll grab that. This also gives us the purple back that we need to end up mana cycling, so we can end up getting all of our mana back. Take any skulls whenever we see them. Take any purple whenever we see them. Ideally, 1 extra turn right here would have been great to get the Zugoth, but let's go for that. Go for 1 other Zugoth, and that should end up killing it, or be very, very close. And then we'll go overkill it, and it's still our turn, and we have all the mana we need. Or at least most of the mana we need. And that's pretty much all you would need to do for it. And of course, always make sure to move forward, unless you're earlier on in the game, in which case just find a nice little medium where you can kind of still win consistently, always, while being able to get a decent amount of shards. However, if you're later in the game, you can easily just keep clicking forward on it, and this will give you slightly more points to be able to go get all of the rewards throughout the event. And there's still plenty of time to be able to get it all. Of course, the most ideal way to do it is do the free battles and then throw the 50 gems. However, you can throw a little bit extra if you so choose, especially now that we're coming down to the final stretch of it. So if you feel like you've missed a few days and you're a lot short, you might want to go for a couple of 100s in there. Otherwise, just stick with the free battles, stick with the 50 gem battles, and get all your rewards from there. Anyways, let's go over now to the 3 teams that utilize stuff in the Soulforge. So there are a few decent stuff in the Soulforge this week. Most notably, we have ourselves the... If I could find it, why did the position feel different? There it is. We have Arachnaean Weaver, Shahbanu Vespera, and probably most important of all, if you haven't already picked it up, Ocea's Tome. So these 3 are 3 really, really great options, and we're going to be showing a team for each one of those 3. So let's start with whatever one I have in order first here. So Shahbanu. Okay, Shahbanu's an interesting one. I'm personally not a big fan of Shahbanu. However, it is a very, very, very fun mythic that has a interesting gimmick, and that gimmick is gaining infinite stats. So you can run her basically in 3 different teams: pure yellow, pure purple, or pure blue. Pure blue and yellow has the benefit of her summon also being yellow and blue, which can come into handy. However, a lot of the really high damage source teams can end up being used off of purple. So I like generally doing purple, even though her yellow and blue ones are a little bit more consistent for looping in a lot of times. So basically what she does, she gives a random skill to an ally of your choice and creates 9 gems of their mana. This mana is random, however, there's a caveat to that. Of course, if you only have 1 mana, it will have to do that because, you know, it's the only choice. So you can end up getting a 100% chance to do that color. The other 2 are picked randomly. However, there's a way around that too. If nearly your entire team is the same color, well, you'll end up having a much higher chance of end up creating that color. So what we're basically going to do here is start killing out our team, go for a couple Doom Skulls here while getting our purple, and essentially we're trying to kill out our team. And in doing this, we're going to gain a bunch of magic and essentially set ourselves up to just completely demolish the enemy. We have some alignment here, so I'm going to go for it now. Hit into Doom Skull again to sacrifice itself, and then we just go back right into Shahbanu, click it onto purple, and we're good to go. So we'll get the last little bit of our mana. I was about to hit the weapon again, but it already died. And that's pretty much how she works. She just gains a bunch of stats. If you're looking for more of a loop-oriented build, you probably want to stick with yellow and blue coloration. However, if you're looking for like quicker kills, purple tends to have a bit better synergy for just wiping out the enemy team at a slightly quicker pace. However, if you're looking for like 1,000 all stats, yellow and blue are a little bit better due to as things die, or, you know, even just in case you accidentally get like a random summon off of this, it'll already be yellow-blue, so it'll have a higher consistency of looping. Whereas generally with a purple-oriented team, you're looking to basically kill out your own team, get like one really good option. In this case, we're running with Doom Scythe. However, this could be pretty much anything. Ideally, a pure purple weapon, though. It could also be Black Manacle. Be a little bit less consistent with Black Manacle, but if you happen to need something cheaper, it's a good alternative if you happen to not have Doom Scythe. And otherwise, you can run any of like the purple AoE weapons, which aren't as good, but there's plenty of just purple, pure purple scythes in the game that just hit all enemies. Actually, if I even type in all enemies, actually, Creeping Death used to be meta. Good option as well to end up doing. This used to be one of the best weapons in the entire game. Not so much in the current state of the game. However, it does have the double death mark while still having a decent AoE. But pretty much anything that you see here, for the most part, particularly Creeping Death, probably your best option if you happen to not have a Doom Scythe. And this is just from 250 wins on the Kedar hero class. And you can end up getting that weapon then. But anyways, that's Shahbanu. You can run either purple, blue, or yellow, depending on how you want to do it. And it just happened to be the quick kill, purple kind of oriented team. So let's go now into Ocea's Tome. So if I'm not mistaken, this team's also usable for the Ward event if you so choose. A lot of Ocea's Tome teams would be, as they're pure elemental, of course. Pretty much every, well, maybe not every. There are some Ocea's Tome teams that aren't ran with pure blue or pure elemental. However, this does double stack. So basically what Ocea's Tome does is it explodes 4 gems for each blue ally and elemental ally. However, that stacks. So that means we're going to do 32 explodes if our entire team is that. Which means basically full board clear. There's a slight chance you don't get a full board clear, but realistically with 32 explodes, you're probably clearing the whole board. Maybe like 1 or 2 will get by occasionally, but as you see right there, full clean 64 swipe. Do keep in mind it is explode, so you're only gaining 50% mana accumulation from it, so it's not like a Throw Destroy or Angry Mob or Marilith or, you know, any of those other ones where they get 100% of the mana. However, you do still get 100% of the value from the skulls, so you still get that kind of value. But basically, it's just a loop-oriented team. Whenever we don't have an option, we just go for Ocea's Tome. Unfortunately, we do not have the mana in this particular situation, so we're going to have to go for a little bit of extra blue here, go for a little bit of Cascade, get our Truffle down again, and kind of just get the cycle going. And you can end up using the Truffle into Mirage Queen, do that, get a board clear. You don't actually have to worry about denying your own green, as you can simply just run an Ocea's Tome and clear out the board and basically be good to go. And apparently we have exactly 100 shards here, and let's do it with the final team here. So, of course, good old standard Life and Death Weaver. You've probably already seen this team a lot, especially if you're in later game Guild War, but it is definitely worth mentioning just because of how relevant it is. It is among one of the stronger defend teams out there as far as Guild War defense are concerned, or as far as non-book Guild War defense are concerned. So basically, we just go for a convert if we end up having it. This is an interesting team that runs actually pretty equally as well on both defense and offense. So even though it can be used for Guild War defense, it can also just be used offensively. Not the quickest team offensively, especially in a stat line like this. Generally, when you're using a Life and Death Weaver, especially if you're using it offensively, you want to make sure that if you're doing it in a battle, you want to have enough damage to actually end up killing. In this particular situation, unfortunately, we do not end up having enough to cycle. Basically, you ideally want to be in a fight where Life and Death plus Weaver will end up killing, so you cast Life and Death, you cast Weaver, and you're good to go. In that case, we did have to double up, though it's not too big a deal, and we're basically just looking for our mana again, repeat the cycle, and we're good to go. And that's mostly what we're looking for here. We do have another Convert, however, I'm actually not going to end up taking it here. Looking for that last little bit of mana so we can just go straight into the combo again, but then again, it looks like it's probably not going to be worth going for here, so we're going to go for the other Convert. He doesn't give us any better alignment, but I'm still going to go for it for that little bit of mana. Fortunately, just ever so slightly short. We don't have a good Cascade there, so we're simply just going to go for that. Go for our pokes again. It looks like his spell reduction is going to get him through. However, we are going to kill the other one, so we still get our 15 explodes, which is pretty much just a full board clear as well. Not as consistent, but, you know, still a pretty decent chance to end up board clearing there. We do have a Skull in play. A little bit unfortunate that with this Mythic battle, we found the tankiest of tank ones. He's among one of the tankier troops in the game, having both 50% spell reduction and 60% score reduction, which is an unfortunate combo. However, he's almost there. Take a little bit of mana there. Our first slot does die, however, if nothing else, this allows us to do the other mechanic. So this team has two backup mechanics. The first is whenever you cast King Avalon, it has a ability that will guarantee end up summoning into first slot. It ends up summoning a random Forest of Thorns troops. However, the more relevant one that we end up having is the one... Oh, is this enough? No, it's not enough damage, is it? No! Really? No. At this point, he's going to die to that Death Mark, which is one other thing. Life and Death does have the Death Mark proc. Who knows if it's actually going to get it. Generally, as Death Mark tends to do, it does literally nothing. It's a status effect that says words, it does nothing. But anyways, the main thing that we have here, of course, and one of the reasons why Weaver is even so relevant, is its trait setup is absolutely insane. It's arguably one of the best trait lines in the entire game, especially combined with what it already can do. So it has Stealthy, so it can't be targeted directly. It has Impervious, so you're not going to stun that away unless you curse stun it. So it has immune to a lot of various status effects. And most notably, it has one of the best summons in the entire game. A 75% chance to summon a Web Spinner when an enemy dies. One thing that's really relevant about Web Spinner is there's triple damage to almost everything in the game. Anything that can be webbed and or poisoned, particularly webbed, it'll end up doing triple damage to. It even applies web on Skull, meaning as long as they don't have immune to web, it'll hit triple damage on Skull to everything in the game. It also has the ability to apply poison, so that can kind of true damage synergize a little bit, and can also loop into itself if it gets lucky enough, also feeding green excess into Arachnaean Weaver. So overall, really, really solid summon. So let's just go kill this thing out real quick, and kill it with our summon here. Please summon. 75% chance, you know you want to. Get our Web Spinner there. Nah, no Web Spinner. But worst comes to worst, you can also tank up with King Avalon. Not the quickest of teams, meant more so for defending, but can end up working out regardless. But anyways, those are all the teams I wanted to mention, all of which are in the description below if you want to go and copy-paste any of these. If you guys have any other questions or any other teams you wish to share of your own, feel free to do so in the comment section below. Definitely feel free to leave a like on the video, as it helps out a lot and is greatly, greatly appreciated. Unfortunately, one day later today. However, I do want to try getting these out on Mondays whenever I can. Of course, as I mentioned back in the day, the way I used to divide it is, you know, the event video on Monday and then the other things on Tuesday. It just works better with my schedule a lot of times. However, if I do have the time, I will try to get them up both on Monday. However, this is one of those weeks where I unfortunately was not able to do so, but I'll try to whenever I can. However, there will be some situations where the teams video will come out on Tuesday, but it will allow us to show some more teams than we normally would be able to, and kind of mess around with them as well. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone.